What's going on, world? Welcome to another video. I am your host, AD the RPA guy, and in today's episode, I'm super excited. I'm here to simplify the process of you guys getting into tech, whether you are someone who works with me within RPA University or you are not, okay? And one thing that I think most people who want to get into tech don't ever do is stop and think about what does my resume, what is my social media, what does this job interview or job acquisition process look like from the perspective of a hiring manager? And so today I wanted to bring you guys this a dope guy who's been in the engineering industry for some time now. He's the guy who makes the hiring decisions, the firing decisions. We had a great call, and I was like, bro, I gotta get you on a YouTube channel. So you guys give it up for my guy James Henderson. James, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. I just appreciate you having me on, man. It's pretty
Yes, sir.
exciting.
Yes,
First
sir.
interview.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. So to just to give you guys some background, James is not hiring like software engineers or RPA developers, but an engineer is an engineer. Okay,
Mhm,
they're all
mhm.
building things, tinkering things, creating things, destroying things. An engineer is an engineer. So an engineering hiring manager is who we're talking to, right? So I'm gonna just jump straight in, man. So what are one to two sure signs that you see during a candidate's interview? Actually, let me start before that. Are you doing most of your interviews face to face these days or online?
Well, it all depends because we have some people who are local. So we use
Yeah.
those people who are local. We bring them in for a
Mm-hmm.
face-to-face interview. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, in the field that we're currently in right now. It's kind of hard to find people who fall into a
Mm-hmm.
certain category. So we
Mm-hmm.
do sometimes either fly people in or we'll do online interviews. So it just depending
You
case by
do all.
case.
You do all the
Yeah,
mixes. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So what are one to two things that or signs that you see that you are like, I know I don't want to work with this guy. Assuming he's sitting in front of you. Like
Right.
he's sitting right there, you know, based on something he says, something the way he walks, talks, like what is it? What are some telltale signs for you?
Whenever they can't fully explain their previous experience knowledge, right? Because of
Mm-hmm.
course we're going to be going off that resume. All of the information on there is vital to get me to understand who you are as a person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if your paper says one thing and then I ask you some questions, okay, you worked at the XX job and you worked there for this amount of years, and they can't give you a full summary of exactly what they did in that role, that's
Mm-hmm.
usually a red flag for me because when you have experience, you should be able to explain it no problem. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that I really look at because there's a lot of people out there that don't really live
They
up
be
to what they
BSing.
say on the
Mm-hmm.
resumes. Yeah.
So incongruency between what their resume says and what they say when they show up.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't
So
get
you're
that.
saying incongruency between what their paper resume says and what they say when they show up.
Exactly. Yes, that
Oh,
matters.
okay. So then how do you tell the difference between someone who is like socially awkward
Hmm.
and so for that reason they're kind of stumbling over what and also someone like I've been in the industry for a long time. So if you ask me like,
Hmm.
"Hey, what did you do there?" I'm like, bro, I did so much that it's kind of hard to remember. So how do
Right.
you make the distinction between someone who's like socially awkward or maybe just they stumble over their words
Right.
versus someone who is totally BSing you and that's why they can't?
Well, one of the things I look for is something detailed, right? So I'll ask him,
Mhm.
okay, if you've worked in manufacturing engineering for a amount of time, can you give me an example of a major project that you worked on that helped move the company forward, right? Since they
Got
should
it.
already know the information about the company they come from, they should already
Yeah.
have some awareness of the projects they've worked on. So give me
Hmm.
some in depth on what you did in that project that helped shape the facility or the company you currently or that you used to work for to help them move forward. And if they can't give me out of all the projects they've done,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can't give me a clear, specific answer of what that's usually
Yeah.
a red sign.
I
Yeah, a
agree.
red flag. You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I agree. Because you're usually working on projects for months at a time.
Absolutely. Various projects at a time. You got to
Yeah.
be able to explain at least
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Okay. So let's jump to the resume for a little bit because you brought that up. So what
Hmm.
would you say, not even like fully reading a resume, but like a quick glance at a resume, right?
Hmm.
What would you say from the perspective of a quick glance makes a good resume versus a bad resume? Like what kind of resume do you pick up and you're like, ah shit, I don't want to read this, versus
Right.
one where you're like, you're not loathing having to look
Right.
at it.
Right. Looking at a resume, the organizational structure of the resume itself. Is it easy
Mm-hmm.
to read? Right. Do you have too much? Sometimes too much information will make me now, okay, I can't spend too much time on this. You know what I mean? So if you're just
Mm-hmm.
getting to the point and help tell that story in a nutshell of exactly what your experience was, that
Mm-hmm.
was what pulls my interest if I'm just scanning through resumes really quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
how your resume is presented is a huge factor.
So not too wordy is what I'm
Right,
hearing you say. Not
right.
paragraphs
Right.
and
You don't
things
want, I
like
mean,
that.
I've had guys give me 3, 4 page resumes. You don't need that. That's too much.
That's
I think
off-putting, it sounds
yeah,
like.
absolutely. The standard 1 to 2 page resumes should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is everyone wants to, capture all of their work experience. You have people out there that have had 10 to 15 jobs before.
Mm-hmm.
Just try to stay within the 5 to 7 year time frame. Especially capture the
Ah.
jobs that you've worked at for 10 years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
hiring managers, we look for longevity. We don't want someone that's going to be job hopping every year, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So if you
Mm-hmm.
definitely have information that's displaying that, and your dedication to the company, that's definitely what grabs my attention.
Okay, so longevity, simple, easy to read, not too
Hmm.
wordy is what I'm hearing you say.
Exactly. Get to the point.
Got it. Got it. So you're so so it sounds like just with your phrase of get to the point. It sounds like you don't even enjoy reading resumes. It's just
No,
something that has to happen in the
no.
process of finding who you want to find.
No, because I can have 1 to 2 engineering positions open, but I'll have 150 resumes on my desk. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So you want to try to
mhm,
shuffle through that as quick as possible, and you want to give everyone a chance, right, to be able to review their stuff. But when it comes to that, man, you have so many applicants. You gotta
mhm.
pull what draws you first.
Okay, I'm going to skip around in my list of questions because you brought that up. So let's just say you have a position to fill, right? And
Hmm.
let's just say you might have 10, 20, 30 candidates to interview. But for each 10 candidates that you interview, what percentage of them are you walking away saying, you know what, man, that was a dope dude. I think he might be a good fit here.
Honestly, about 2 to 3%.
2 to 3%. So that
Two
means
two
you
to three
got
percent.
so that means you got to interview 100 people to find 2 to 3 that you think would be a
Yes.
solid fit. Why do you
Yes.
think is that why do you that sounds terrible. So
It is there.
from my perspective, that's great because that just tells me most people suck, right?
Mhm.
But like what is that other 97, 98% like?
Well, a lot of times is like I said, their resumes just don't have the information that we're looking for, or it's just too over the top, or um, a lot of times it's just lack of what we're looking for, because you have to think about it in this situation. I'm in the lithium battery business, so
Mm-hmm.
we have
Mm-hmm.
to really, it's very difficult, number one, to find people who are from this industry, and the
Mm-hmm.
people that we're looking for who are even close are usually either youngsters that are just finishing up college,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So it's very hard to find. And then a lot of the resumes that I do receive, they just don't have what we're looking for in terms of lithium battery manufacturing. You know what I mean? Because there's such
Mm-hmm.
a broad spectrum of different types of engineers out there. We look
Mm-hmm.
for specific ones, or even ones that are probably teachable, to help bring them up in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to resumes, that it's very hard to find that exact frame person that
Question,
you're looking for.
question, question. I think I confused you. So I
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily asking about resumes because you're probably
Hmm.
not going to go do 100 interviews. I'd
Right.
imagine for one position. I'm talking
Right.
about we've gotten past the resume. So you've
Okay.
you, you trashed the resumes you didn't want, and now
Okay.
you have 10 people that you're about to interview.
Right.
What percentage of those 10? Because you know you're going to sit down with them. The resume
Right.
looked good enough to where you want to sit down, and let's just say
Right.
they're all local. Of
Hmm.
those 10 people, where the resume looked good enough, not perfect, but good enough to where you want to sit down. Of those 10 people, what percentage do you think you are going to end up being like that was a solid candidate?
Percentage, I would say, again, 3%.
Okay,
3%.
okay,
Yeah. So out of that 10, there'll probably be about a good 3 solid ones in
okay,
there from what I've seen.
okay. So then, let me ask you this then. Um, in my mind, there are the technical skills, and then there's social slash people skills,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Based on which would you say is more important?
Technical skills.
Technical skills.
Technical
Okay.
skills. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who are in this field who aren't necessarily a people person. You know what I mean? I have
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
engineers that sit in their office all day long and take care of their projects and don't talk to
Mm-hmm.
anyone. They just present
Mm-hmm.
whenever they need to. And
Mm-hmm.
some of my best people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
would definitely say the technical skills is what someone should really bring to the table.
Do you ever interview with somebody though, and you believe this person has the technical skills necessary,
Hmm.
but they are struggling to communicate it?
Right. I've actually had that before, and usually I have like a list of questions that I ask certain individuals for certain roles. And if I
Mm-hmm.
seem like they're not catching on to the question or they're having difficulty, I'd ask them a couple of different ways and from different angles to where they fully understand it. You know what I mean? So I'll dumb
Got
it
it.
down 2 or 3 times until it finally catches. They're like, oh, okay, this is what you're asking me. And then they give me the information. So I try to help push them through because I mean, in all the years I've been doing this, I can kind of tell when someone struggles with, interviews or someone is just nervous at that
Okay, so
time
you
frame,
give them grace. You
Right,
give
right.
them
I
grace in
definitely
that
do.
area,
I
and you help
definitely
them.
do.
Okay,
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
it. So that's the kind of man. That's the kind of manager you are. You're
Right,
like, all right, bro. You can be awkward. I'm going to phrase this in such a way that if you
right.
understand it, you're going to be able to get it to me. Okay, perfect,
Absolutely.
perfect. So
Absolutely.
then let's talk about the social media a little bit. Do you ever Google a candidate's name
Every time. Every
every
time.
time? And what are you looking for?
When I have those 10 people, I would go through, I'll look at Facebook, I'll look at Instagram, and I just kind of kind of look for who they are as a person. Do they have a family? Are they single? Do they travel? Like, I mean, are they displaying some of their strengths in their social media? You know what I mean? Because so
Mm,
a lot of times people will sometimes reflect who they are in their social media. Are they a
yes.
person who seems like they're one person at work and then they're a whole different person who gets in trouble and has all kinds of issues outside of work? Because that
Hmm.
also can affect my business as well. You can be as
Hmm.
good as you want to be, but if you can't make it to work and get the job done, then I'm probably not going to want to choose you as a candidate.
So what are
You
some
know?
green flags that you find when you're looking, and what are some red flags? That sounds like a red flag.
Right, right. So some green flags I would say when I'm looking is, do they seem like they're a person that has a good head on their shoulders, right? Like a lot of people that I've worked with, for an example, we have people who have families. Guys who have
Hmm.
families have a different mindset than younger individuals who don't have families. Those people are a
Hmm.
lot more hungry because they have a lot to
Responsibilities.
lose. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They have a lot to lose. So they're not willing to, you usually get those good people who are more family orientated. That's one of the things I look at as well. That's actually a
Hmm.
really good green flag for me.
I like it. Family oriented. And then
Family
red
oriented, yeah.
flag, we said, looks like he's a troublemaker outside of work. Like
Yeah.
he might not be able to show up for his shift on Monday because he's in jail.
Right. Right. That you
Got
see
it.
people out there, they're doing sometimes because people don't look at what that recruiters actually pay attention to the social media. They're out
Hmm.
there in the clubs all the time. They're partying.
Hmm.
That's mostly what you're seeing on their feed. You know,
Hmm.
their vocabulary usage from when they talk to you and then they're on social media as well. A
Yeah.
lot of the
Yeah.
time I've already kind of reviewed those things before the interview have happened has
Yeah.
taken place. So I kind of
Yeah.
compare the two.
So is that a deal breaker for you though? Because
No.
some people show up as like their corporate, what's the word I'm looking for? They code switch, I think is the
Right.
right word, right? And so they
Right.
show up one way to get the job done, and then they're like, hey, I turn my brain off and I'm different.
Right.
That is that a
Right.
deal breaker when you're looking for people?
No, it is not. I just do that to have a sense of who they are as a person. It's never a
Hmm.
deal breaker to me because not everyone's going to be the same in both areas, where they're at
Hmm.
work and they're at home. So no,
Hmm.
that's not necessarily a deal breaker for me.
Okay. So then let's say that there's a candidate where you're Googling their name and you can't find anything
Right.
because their name is just something like John Johnson type of thing, where it's
Right.
just so common.
Right.
How do you feel about that candidate?
I still move forward with the candidate and do the interview and stuff like that. The reviewing of the social media is just a reference for me to kind of get a general idea, because even
Got it.
social media doesn't fully tell you a person's story just by looking at
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I mean?
And the reason I ask that is because I tell people in the course that like there's three things they can find when they look you up on social media. Things that paint you in a positive light, a
That's
negative
right.
light, or nothing at all. Okay.
That's right.
We're okay with nothing and we're okay with positive. We just want to
Right.
remove all the negative, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Um, cool. Let me move to the next question. So this is a unique question. All things being equal, let's say you're looking at two candidates, right? And you believe that both have the skill set necessary, right? no red flags or no glaring red flags anyway. Would you prefer to hire the candidate who is incredibly humble or incredibly confident?
Honestly, I look for humbleness.
Why is that?
I've I've had a lot of because I've had candidates before who are very confident. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they're overconfident, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have that confident person, they could do the job. They're always trying to prove themselves. But I've noticed a lot of times in the past when you have those type of individuals, they will
Mm-hmm.
even they will even overshadow other people instead of working alongside these people. They'll overshadow themselves to make themselves look good. Me,
Can you
the
give an
type of
example?
Okay, so you have a gentleman who I have a team of engineers. We're having a meeting in the morning and I'm asking specific questions. I have a gentleman that'll just cut everyone off and want to be that first person to answer the question to make himself stand out. Now, like I said, he has a lot of confidence, not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not looking for that person that's always trying to put himself front line. I want someone who's going to be a team player, and if someone's
Mm-hmm.
going to advance forward, they're also helping the rest of the team advance forward and working with those individuals. You get what I'm saying?
I got you. So I'm hearing you say like a team player, but that almost sounds like arrogance though, right?
Right,
Rather than because when I say confidence versus humility, I'm thinking more so. I have people in RPA University who like they go first off, they're incredibly well trained. Like they're going and getting junior positions because they have, little experience. But I
right,
run them through the ringer. They're doing like corporate level work, like projects by themselves. So their confidence, in my opinion, should be here, but they're coming in and they're kind of not communicating it with their words, but with their tone. Like, I'm okay. I've been doing it 3 to 6 months, so I'm okay. And I'm like, no, bro, you're a beast. You're not just okay, but your
right,
words make you sound as though you're not that good, right? And I'm like,
right.
you
So you're
need
talking
to
about
sound more
confidence within
confident.
themselves. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay. So maybe that's what the thing
yes.
is. A person who's confident within themselves versus someone who like they're also good. They downplay how
Right,
good they are.
right, right.
All things
Well,
being equal, which would you choose?
um, I would always go for the humble person because a humble
Okay.
person, you can help build confidence in them. You know what I
Got
mean?
it.
You could
Got it.
always help someone build confidence. And then you could just integrate them with all the people who also already have the confidence within themselves as well. So definitely, I enjoy the humble person.
Okay. Perfect. So then, can you tell us a story of a time where a candidate had a great resume, but then you met them in person and you're like, nah, bro, this ain't it.
Hmm.
This guy's not it.
Okay. Maybe about 6 months ago, I brought a gentleman in. I had a controls engineer position that was open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy had, I mean, he had everything that we were looking for. He had the engineering degree, which is really don't require that, but he had one. He had about maybe 8 years of experience in the field. He was relatively young, so I know he'd be looking
Mm-hmm.
to be somewhere for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so he checked all the boxes. I bring him
Mm-hmm.
into the interview. We have the sit down, and now once I started talking to him more and more, it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like he had a lot of arrogance to him. You know what I
Okay.
mean? He had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
arrogance in the sense to where he was only out for himself and what he can gain from the company versus working for
Ah.
the company and helping the company move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy even told me he was set out to get my job and move me out of my position
Oh
one day,
Lord. He
step
probably
into mine.
heard somebody say that in a movie or
Right.
something like that.
Right, right. Would you, there's a time and a place to
He
use
came
that
out and said,
type
I
of
want your
verbiage.
job.
Yeah, he's I want your job, but it's like it took me to 20 years to get to where I'm at, but I
Uh-huh.
understand your confidence, but there's just
Mm-hmm.
certain things you really don't want to say in a hiring interview in
So it
situations.
sounds like he just didn't know any better.
He- Yeah, yeah, kind of sorta, but in a sense, when you step into an interview, man, you better be
Yeah.
ready to go. There's other
Yeah.
people looking for the same role as you are. You got to be
Mm-hmm.
careful the things you say and how you present yourself.
I agree. I agree. I agree. Um, so then can you tell us a story about one of the best hires you've ever made? Like a guy who you sat down with and you're like, or let me skip that. Have you ever hired a guy and you're like, okay, I don't know. I don't
Right.
know about this guy. I think I don't know. And then he actually showed up and was not showed up. Once he started the job, it was like, all right, no, yeah, this guy's a keeper.
Right. So I did have a gentleman. He was very well qualified. The interview went well. I mean, he had a great personality, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
after my face to face interviews, I'll always take them out to the facility floor so they can see the different type of machinery. You go out there and see
Uh-huh.
some of this technology we have. It looks like stuff out of NASA, right? As I'm walking
Okay.
them through the process and I'm showing them all the different areas, I noticed the demeanor on his face really changed, and he started becoming very, very nervous. And
Mm.
I stopped and asked him, "Hey, man, is everything okay?" He's like, "Well, I just don't know if I can do this." In the interview, he
Oh.
was confident. He
Mm-hmm.
checked all. He sounded like he knew what he was doing, had the experience. Then we go out there because he's never been exposed to that type of machinery before. It's like he
Mm-hmm.
just completely broke down. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So after at the end of all that, it kind of made me something like, okay, I don't know if this guy can actually do the job like he says he does. I have a good feeling about him. Everything was great, but I'm still kind of like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I actually ended up hiring the gentleman, and he ended up being one of the best engineers that I have. But
Mm-hmm.
just that certain time frame where he became extremely nervous and it was displaying that, it kind of
Mm-hmm.
made me question him, a lot to see if he'd possibly even be a good candidate, let alone be able to perform this specific role. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But like I said, but it took for me to determine, to take a chance on the guy. Like, hey, let's do it. Let's hire him. Let's get him out there with the good team,
Yeah.
so we can work with them. And everything worked out for the better. He ended up being he's one of the best guys we have.
Okay. This is more of an impromptu question. How often do you, let's say you hire 10 guys, right? How often are you like, do you feel like you got it right 12 months later? Or how often do you hire someone and then you feel like, nah, bro, that was, I messed up on that one.
Right, right. Let's say out of a 1 year time span,
Yeah.
and let's say I hire 50 employees. I've had a situation where maybe about three or four of them ended up being pretty bad. You know,
Okay.
so and I've even had it's even led to me having to fire them because of the
Hmm.
lack of performance that they
And
were
when you
displaying.
look back on those three or four, were there any patterns or things that you think like, you know what, I should have noticed this, but I didn't?
Well, that brings us back to the overconfidence. We
Okay.
have gentlemen that, okay, this guy seems like he's confident. I know one
Hmm.
day he can probably take over my role or even be in a higher engineering position, and we give them
Hmm.
that chance, and they just turn around and they do a 360 when they're out on the floor. And
Hmm.
they end up being a complete problem. To where it's like, you know what, I got to cut my
Hmm.
ties because I've had you here, and this just isn't working out.
Hmm. Okay. I like it. I like it. Um, so reflecting on your career as a hiring manager, right? What would you say is one overlooked quality that consistently separates top candidates from the rest of them?
Top over one of the best
Like maybe a
qualities.
quality that you think, no, this is important, this is good, that other people in your position are like, that's not that big a deal.
Attention to detail.
I agree.
Paying
I agree.
attention to detail is a very good quality that a person could have versus just someone just trying to get the job done. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's one of
Hmm.
the things that I look at. When I see a person has one specific quality and paying attention to great detail versus others that just kind of seem like they're just a good fit. I think that's
Hmm.
something that's consistently overlooked by hiring managers because they
Hmm.
just want to get someone into the role.
I can see it. Like we're they're rushing
Right,
almost
right,
instead of
right,
doing their due diligence, and then they end up
right.
hiring people who rush and get things done
That's right.
just like them. Okay.
That's right.
So then one of the things I have everybody in RPA University do is like we work on certain projects and then we upload these projects to the internet, videos talking about them, showing their work. Do
Hmm.
you ever have any candidates that come in advance and like they show you their work? And then if so, I don't know if that's possible in your industry. That's why I'm
Okay.
asking it like that. And then if so, do those people typically stand out?
Honestly, I've never had someone come in and have a project that they've already worked on previously to display to
Mm-hmm.
people. No,
Okay. Okay. No, no videos, no not,
nah, because the
okay.
battery industry is very, very rare. Because a lot of times when you work in that role, a lot of these companies they don't allow you to keep that information yourself. A
Yeah.
lot of it's a lot of proprietary information. Because
Makes
you
sense.
put out a little information, other companies around could see it and possibly steal that information to produce their own
Mm-hmm.
batteries. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that stuff is usually isn't displayed.
Got it. And so that's why it sounds like you go off of how well they can tell the story of the projects they worked on.
Absolutely.
Because that's the only
Absolutely.
thing you really have to go off of.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Got it. Um, so then how much emphasis do you put on referrals or like references when you're sitting
Um,
down with a candidate?
Honestly, one of the biggest things that we do in my company is we do have a referral program. So if they know, so if I'm getting a referral from an in-house employee and that person is already has a good
Mm.
reputation, I usually tend to look at those resumes first and bring that person in for an interview. Because I mean, if the chances I got with the engineer I currently have, he has a good
Mm-hmm.
friend that he probably worked besides for many years and has a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the same knowledge. I want to go explore that and see see what the possibilities are bringing that person into our organization.
I like it. I like it. All right. Last couple questions here, man. I appreciate your time.
No worries, no
Um,
worries.
so how do you determine if a candidate's energy and enthusiasm, like during an interview, is genuine versus like rehearsed?
You know what? It's just something you can feel. You know what I mean? Because what
Mm-hmm.
I do when I have interviews, I do have a set packet of questions that I ask them, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't do things the same. I'll switch it up sometimes, and I'll start with one instead of starting with the first topic. I will start that topic last, and then I would
Mm-hmm.
shuffle things around to kind of get a
Mm-hmm.
feel for that person because you can genuinely, and I don't know if it's the same case with everyone else, but I can genuinely tell if someone is just they're faking it in a sense. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something that you learn to catch on to after years of experience of doing interviews and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the best way I can word that, man. It's just
Do
a
you have
feeling.
do you have a list of questions, or do you? Oh, let me put it this way: do you have any techniques? It sounds like you don't need them because they do it to themselves. But do you have
Right.
any techniques in order to like catch people in their BS?
Mm,
Let me give you an example. I'll never forget, bro. I was in college. This is to this day. This is the worst interview I've ever done,
hmm
ever done. Okay, so embarrassed. So I'm sitting down with a guy from American Airlines, right? And he's an executive or whatever, and he's just looking at my resume and he's asking me about stuff. And I haven't had any jobs yet, right? Because I'm still in college. And he asked me like, "Oh, okay, I see this on your resume," or "Tell me more about that," right? And everything I would say, I'm already shaky because I barely know what the hell I'm talking about. And he say, "Tell me
hmm
more about that. Tell me more about that." And like, I just walked out that room knowing, like, bro, I'm not about to get this job. And that's when I made a decision. I'm never going to put anything else on my resume that I cannot speak to intelligently because all
Right.
it does is lead to you putting your foot in your mouth and now you look bad. Bro, that was terrible. So, do you have any things like that? Any techniques like that?
So before I start an interview, I do inform them that I do have a list of questions that we're going to go through, and
Mm-hmm.
I give them what I try to tell them to do is try to be as detailed as possible. What we want to utilize is the STAR tactic: situation, task, action, result. Right? Tell me this
Oh.
situation. Explain the situation of the question. Okay, what were you tasked to do in that situation? What actions did you take to to go perform whatever the task was, and what was the result of it? So I give them that breakdown, and if they don't follow that, because if they follow that criteria perfectly, that'll give me all the information I'm looking for. But if there's something missing,
Ah.
that'll indicate to me, okay, you probably didn't do this project or you probably didn't
Yeah.
perform it the way you say you did. So using the STAR tactic is what's always helped for me when it comes to
Interesting.
interviews.
And do you give them that framework in advance and
I
say,
give
hey,
them that framework in advance. Hey, I'm going to ask you 20 questions, answer them to the best of your knowledge. Here, we like to utilize the STAR tactic. I break it down to them. Sometimes I even have a pamphlet right there letting them know what the steps are. Hey, just read
mm-hmm,
over this. And if you could explain it to me in this manner, this will help me
mm-hmm.
understand what your
So if a
experience is
candidate
like.
came in and was already giving it to you that way, then that would be helpful. Like
That's
you,
a huge green flag. Yeah.
but I'm putting that in
Yeah.
the course. See, that's what I'm talking about. That right there, you guys heard it here. The star tactic. Please
Yep.
spell that out again, and then can you give us an
Okay.
example of it?
Star: situation, task, action, and result. One of the more baseline questions I'll ask him is like, okay, what are one of the have you ever worked on projects before? Yes. Can you give me an example of a project that you worked on that was time sensitive? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be in the cheese and dairy industry years ago, so I'll bring this up. So I'm like, so give me a project that you worked on that had a minimal amount of time to work on it. The person be like, okay, the situation was I had a project that I had to figure out a way we were able to receive 1 million more pounds of milk. right,
Mm,
for our process area. And but we had to figure out ways, because we had to run the product simultaneously and still continue to receive that 1,000,000 pounds of milk in that certain amount of time period. So the
mhm,
situation was, I reached out to the milk supplier. I started increasing the amount of loads that we were receiving for that specific day until we were able to integrate that 1,000,000 pounds. The task was, me actually uh, 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 confirming and scheduling for the additional deliveries,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And then the action was getting the approval from presenting it to the management, getting the full approval from them of what our plans were to increase throughput. And
mhm.
then the result of it is we were able to get all of the orders in on time. We were able to get approvals, and we were able to start getting things rolling and start receiving the additional 1,000,000 pounds.
So
See, it just
you're
gives
not
you a
even
full.
necessarily looking for a complex answer.
No,
It can even be simple. It just
no.
needs to follow,
Just
or
give
I
me
love it.
something basic. Give me
I
the
like it.
beginning result and give me the end result. A lot of the guys like to answer a question and don't tell you what the result of it was. Did you get it done or
Mhm,
not? You never really explain that. You know what I
mhm,
mean? So that helps us
mhm.
understand how you fully complete a certain task.
I like it. Okay. You've brought up a bunch of other questions. I know I said last few questions. Now I
You're
got
fine.
three
You're
more
fine. You're
and
good.
we're done, man. This has been great. This has been great. They should have to pay for this interview. That's how well this is, because no one people sign up for all these damn boot camps and it's like, yeah, you learn these skills, but bro, the last skill you must learn is how to get hired, right?
Right.
So bro,
Right.
you're blessing the people and they have no idea. Okay. So then let's just say the interview is like over, it's towards the tail end, right? That's where these next few questions are coming from. Um, what is the best case and worst case scenario when you reach the end of an interview and you ask the candidate, like, all right, do you have any questions for me? Do you care if they have questions? Do you care if they don't? What do you tend to see the best engineers do at that point?
I actually am very admirable when people have questions, because at the end of the interview, we went through all of this information. I've given you background about our company. I fully understand where you come from as a candidate in your career and where you're headed. Asking questions is always a positive thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to. There's got to be something there that you want to challenge the manager with, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what is the pay scale? What is the road of opportunity do I have if I was to take a chance on coming to your company? Like, it's always good to challenge that manager so you know exactly what you're stepping into as a possible new hire. So
So when they
questions,
so when they don't ask any questions, what does that lead you to assume about them?
if they don't ask questions, I don't think that's a bad thing. It
Mm-hmm.
just makes the individuals who want to know more about our company and challenge me as a manager, it makes them stand out a little more. Because
Got
when
it.
I'm sitting in a room with two other hiring managers, okay, we have these group of 5 guys here. Oh, like, how did everything go? Who do you guys think we should hire out of this group? I'm going to remember, okay, that gentleman had a lot of
Got it.
questions.
Got it.
He was
Got
very,
it.
very interested in the company. And so that could be the common denominator of that person getting chosen over the 4 other people that didn't ask any questions.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these decision making is very close. You know what I mean? You'll have some really good
Mm-hmm.
people, but you have
Mm-hmm.
to remember that one person that stood out over the rest.
Got it. So it just helps them stand out,
Helps them
right?
stand out.
So
Definitely.
essentially, if you're not asking questions, you're more likely to be forgotten. You're more forgettable.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Got it.
Definitely.
So then what do you think somebody can do in order to stay on your radar after the interview is over? Or what have you seen people do?
You know what? The thing that I've seen the most is follow up.
What does
After
that
the
look like?
So I had a guy one time. I gave him the interview. The interview went extremely well. Next morning, 9 o'clock, I was getting emails. I was getting phone calls. Hey, I just wanted to follow up. Let you know I'm very interested. This is what's going on. Da, da, da. So persistence, I love it. It shows how hungry a person is.
Oh, so
You know what
he
I
didn't
mean?
come off as thirsty to you. You like
Nah,
when they
he can. I,
persist.
I like that. I like that, man.
Okay.
Because yeah, I definitely like that.
Do you think that that's a thing that James likes, or do you think that that is something that most hiring managers would also like and appreciate?
I would say a combination of the both, because any
Okay.
good manager would like to have someone on display that's hungry for their company. You know what I
Got it.
mean?
I
It's
got
really
you.
trying to
I
push
got
their
you.
way in, and they've already proven themselves through the interview process. Now they're just showing you a little bit of that extra. Hey,
It's
I want to
proof
come
that they
work for
want
you.
to be
Oh
here.
yeah, oh yeah. I had a guy that had no car, had no nothing, man, would walk here on foot every single day until he caught me and was able to have a conversation with me.
Wow.
That stuck in my mind. I was like, you know what? Bring this guy in. Let's talk to
Yeah.
him. Put him on the front. I really like his, his ambition and his drive.
Mhm.
Let's bring him in.
So it sounds
That
like persistence is one of those
persistence
things
is a huge thing.
that maybe people overlook. I've never
Right.
even thought about that.
Right.
Okay. So it sounds like there's no amount of follow up that's too much,
No,
is what
in
I'm
my
hearing.
eyes, that may be me personally speaking, but in my
Mhm.
eyes, no, there isn't too much follow up. No.
No, I agree because I always say, and I'm thinking
Oh,
about this as I'm. It's all good.
lights went out.
I'm thinking out loud as I'm saying this, right? I tell people that business and dating is very similar, right? And so if you are pursuing it, and in the corporate structure, the company is in the masculine. They have more
Right.
power, right? Because they decide whether or not you can or cannot work for them. And
Right.
so that's like having a chick who's like on you, like, hey, I love that date. I can't wait for the next one. Can't wait for the next one. Can't wait. Of course, you're gonna like that. Who
Absolutely.
doesn't want to be wanted, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what I'm thinking. All right, man. Last question. So if you were interviewing for an engineering position, right, and knowing all the things that you know, having all the experience that you have, how would you prepare in advance, and what would you do during the interview to stand out? Like if you had to take all your best advice, what would you do if you were going on an interview? You knew you were qualified, you knew you had the confidence, all of that. What would that look like?
I would say bring evidence. Bring evidence of like bring all of your data from a previous project that you worked on because it's not
Mm-hmm.
usually asked by very many companies. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing can help a person prove themselves more than having that evidence to show the effect you've had on previous companies. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I understand you guys didn't ask for this, but I have this PowerPoint that I did that saved the company $6
Mm.
million last year. Do you have a few minutes when I can show it to you and keep it brief? You know what I mean? Having that'll actually help you stand out amongst any other candidates. Bringing something to the table that wasn't asked for.
I like it. I like it. No, I completely agree, man. All right, last few seconds here. So again, the audience that we're talking to right now are they're usually husbands, right, or wives. They've been trying to get into an engineering role with respect to the tech space for a while now. They're willing to invest in themselves. They've spent money, they've spent time, and it's just the interview phase. It's that hump that they are having a lot of emotional difficulty with. Because I tell people that the interview process, this is a spiritual process. The job
Right.
hunting process, this is a spiritual process, right? And
Right.
let's just say that they're just a bit down on their morale right now. What advice would you have for someone like that?
Reach out to colleagues who are in the same place as them, people who are already in the industry. You know what I mean? Get pointers from them. Hey, how did you prepare when you got your position at the company that you're working for? Spend
Mm-hmm.
time with people who have been there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? That's what the
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the biggest things that I've because early in my career, I also used to struggle with interviews and things like that. Do
Mm-hmm.
do mock interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies will give you information on things they ask for, and the information's out there. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
spending
Yes.
time with someone who's been there before can help shape you into a better interview taker.
I
Definitely.
like it. I like it. All right, man. We got to get up out of here. James, this was a pleasure, man. Thank
No
you so
worries.
much.
No
To
worries.
the people who are tuning in, hopefully this provided you some value. If you like it, drop a comment. If you hate it, drop a comment. Also, if you're interested in RPA University, which is the world's simplest tech program where we teach you how to get into tech, earn $100,000, scale your income to $250,000, working less than 30 hours a week so you can travel, live the lifestyle that you want, click the link below in this description in order to have that happen so we can see if we want to set up a screening call. Until next time, peace.